AI is moving faster than law ever could. By the time lawmakers draft a bill, hold hearings, pass amendments, and get something passed, the technology has already evolved 3 times over. Governments are built to move slowly, and that's intentional. Laws are supposed to be deliberate and carefully considered. But AI development doesn't wait for that process to catch up. Right now, AI systems are making decisions that affect people's lives. They're writing articles, generating medical advice, influencing political messaging, and replacing entire categories of human work. However, there's almost no legal framework governing how any of this should work. We're deploying the technology first and asking questions about regulations later, which is the exact opposite of how we handled other powerful technologies in the past. When cars became widespread, we created traffic laws, safety standards, and licensing requirements before they were everywhere. Same thing with airplanes and medicine. The idea was that you figure out the rules before the thing becomes so embedded in society that regulating it becomes nearly impossible. But with AI, we skip that step entirely. We just let it proliferate, and now we're trying to figure out what the boundaries should be after millions of people are already using it daily. And here is the uncomfortable part. We now have decision-making systems operating at scale with no clear answers to basic questions, such as who's responsible when an AI system causes harm? What are these systems legally allowed to do? Who controls the data they're trained on? These aren't abstract philosophical questions anymore. They're practical questions that need answers, and we don't have them. It gets worse when you realize that governments themselves are starting to use AI without clear legal frameworks. Agencies are experimenting with it for surveillance, predictive policing, welfare fraud detection, immigration screening, and military intelligence. The appeal is obvious. AI promises efficiency. It can process massive amounts of data faster than any human ever could. But efficiency in government decision-making comes with serious risk, especially when there are no laws around it. Just over a week ago, the Pentagon got into a public fight with Anthropic, the company that makes Claude. Anthropic had a $200 million contract with the Department of Defense, but it had 2 restrictions. Number 1, Claude couldn't be used for the mass surveillance of American citizens. And number 2, it couldn't be used to power fully autonomous weapons. The Pentagon wanted those restrictions removed. They wanted full unrestricted access for any lawful use. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth gave Anthropic a deadline: accept the new terms or lose the contract. Anthropic refused. President Trump then banned the entire federal government from using Anthropic's products and designated the company a supply chain risk. The Pentagon's argument was straightforward. Existing laws already restrict what the military can do, so Anthropic's contractual limits were redundant. If something is illegal, the military won't do it. You just have to trust them. But here's the problem with that argument. There aren't actually any comprehensive laws governing how the federal government can use AI. There are some restrictions on domestic surveillance and some policies about autonomous weapons. However, those were written before AI existed in its current form. The laws weren't designed for systems that can put together commercially available data at a scale that makes mass surveillance possible in a way that wasn't technically feasible a decade ago. So when Hegseth says that the military will only use AI for lawful purposes, he's technically correct. But the law itself has not actually caught up to what AI can actually do. And this isn't just about the military. Governments at every level are starting to use AI for decisions that directly affect people. Automated systems are used to approve or deny benefits, flag individuals for additional scrutiny, and allocate resources. But when an AI makes a decision, who or what is behind that decision? If a human government worker makes a mistake, there is a process to challenge it. However, when an AI system, for example, hallucinates, who do you appeal to? The agency that deployed it, the company that built it, or the algorithm itself? Another area that's pretty much lawless is ownership. Who owns AI-generated content? AI can now generate music, images, videos, and articles that are indistinguishable from human-made work. But the law still hasn't figured out who owns any of it. Is it the person who wrote the prompt? Maybe the company that built the model? Or perhaps the artist whose work was used to train the system? Or does nobody own it at all? Different courts in different countries are giving different answers, which means we're in a state of legal chaos. Artists argue that their work was scraped without permission to train these models and they're not being compensated for it. AI companies argue that the outputs are transformative and therefore they're legally distinct from the training data. And users just assume they own whatever they generate because they were the ones who created the prompt. But in many places, AI-generated content doesn't even qualify for copyright protection because the content wasn't made by a human. And that creates a very weird situation. You could use AI to create something, invest time and effort into refining designing it and then have no legal ownership of it. Someone else could just come, take it, use it commercially, and you'd have no recourse. Or a company could use AI to produce content at scale, flood the market with it, and undercut human creators without ever having to pay for the intellectual property that made it possible in the first place. This is not just an abstract issue for artists and musicians. It affects journalism, advertising, software development, and basically any industry where content creation matters. And once again, AI is producing outputs faster than copyright law can adapt. And until there's a clear legal framework, the entire concept of ownership in creative work is in question. So here's where we are. AI is being deployed at scale. Governments are just using it without any legal frameworks. Intellectual property law has not caught up, and the people who are supposed to be making the rules are either too slow or too disengaged to do it effectively. The average age in Congress is around 60 years old. A lot of these lawmakers grew up before the internet existed, let alone AI. That doesn't necessarily mean they're incapable of understanding it, but it does mean the learning curve is very steep. And here's the part that should concern people. If democratic governments don't create rules for how AI should operate, the companies building it will do it for them. Right now, most of the rules governing AI are being created by corporate policy, not law. Companies are actively deciding what their models can say, what data they can be trained on, what content they'll generate, and what industries they will disrupt. And corporate policy can change overnight based on business strategy, public pressure, or even just a new CEO's priorities. That means that the future of AI governance could be shaped by private interests, optimizing for profit rather than by democratic processes optimizing for public good. And once that dynamic is established, it's really hard to reverse. Tech companies will have spent years building infrastructure, establishing norms, and embedding their systems into society. By the time lawmakers actually try to regulate, the industry will argue that new rules would be disruptive, stifle innovation, and hurt competitiveness. We've seen this play out with social media, and it's about to happen again with AI unless something changes. The Anthropic situation is a perfect example of this tension. A private company tried to set boundaries on how its technology could be used by the government. The government responded by cutting all ties and banning it from all federal contracts. And then other companies immediately stepped in and agreed to fewer restrictions. And the result is that boundaries got weaker, not stronger. And all this is happening with virtually no public debate or congressional oversight. If we want meaningful AI regulation, it's going to require electing people into office who actually understand it and are willing to prioritize it. Which means that voters need to pay attention to where candidates stand on these issues. Because right now, most of the people making decisions about AI either don't fully grasp what it can do, or they just don't see it as important enough to act on. And in the meantime, the rules are being written by companies building these products and agencies deploying them, not by the public through democratic processes. If you care about AI regulation and want more videos like this, let me know down in the comments and subscribe to my channel. AI is already reshaping society. The question is whether society gets to decide these rules or if we just let tech companies and government agencies figure it out on their own. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.